Samantha was admired for her beauty and wealth, but she was disliked by her friends and acquaintances. She looked down on everyone, no matter their status, considering herself superior to anyone in her circle. This disdain extended to those living in crowded high-rise buildings, and the wealthy beauty showed no hesitation in expressing her contempt for those who relied on her. At the same time, no one dared to speak out against her, as her father was a powerful figure. Despite her stubborn personality, Samantha had warm relationships with her parents, though they sometimes wondered how they managed to raise such a rebellious girl. When she decided on something, getting along with her could be quite challenging. Samantha wouldn't calm down until she achieved her goals, and she didn't care if her desires caused discomfort to anyone. She had no true friends. She viewed all the other girls as jealous and waiting to see her fail. However, by some twist of fate, she maintained a friendship with Lila, the daughter of wealthy parents whom she had met in London while studying abroad. The girls tried to stick together and continued their friendship at home. To be honest, it was hard to call their relationship true friendship. Instead, it felt like a constant battle between two beautiful and affluent girls who were desperate to outshine each other. They competed in dresses, jewelry, parties, and vacations, always staying roughly on equal footing. In the end, Samantha still came out on top. She received a marriage proposal and eagerly began planning her wedding. Ethan was the kind of groom everyone envied. Handsome and from a wealthy family, he had achieved a lot by the age of 27. Samantha genuinely loved him and couldn't wait for the wedding day. Lila, despite being surrounded by admirers, had not yet found a worthy match. She wouldn't have refused a man like Ethan, but he was snatched away from her by the quick-moving Samantha. It was hard for Lila to get over this disappointment. To cheer herself up, she bought a new sports car, hoping to show it off to Samantha, and suggested they go to a bridal salon together to pick out a dress. Although Samantha already owned 2 luxurious wedding dresses made just for her, she wanted a spare dress just in case. This was a small detail in her plans since everything else had already been paid for and arranged. They decided to buy a ready-made dress at a bridal house that only the upper class could visit. The entrance was closed to mere mortals in cheerful spirits. Samantha and Lila settled into the new shiny car and headed to the salon. As soon as Samantha, a brunette with big gray eyes and legs that seemed to go on forever, emerged from the fitting room in a magnificent white dress, Lila couldn't hold back. Her lips trembled as tears filled her eyes, and she reached for the glass of champagne that the salesperson politely offered. Now it was clear why bridesmaids were given champagne. Lila grumbled to herself, trying to soften the bitterness of not being the one getting married. The next dress was even better, and Lila quickly finished her glass and reached for another. She lost track of how much she drank, but she knew she couldn't endure the torture of someone else's happiness without sparkling wine. One thing pleased her. Samantha didn't end up choosing that dress. Lila criticized her choice, declaring she wouldn't wear such a peasant dress from a 5-year-old collection. As they left the salon, the bride tearfully complained about the lack of decent shops in the city, not even noticing that her friend was clearly drunk. Lila was aware she had drunk too much, but tried to keep her composure as she got behind the wheel. The car started moving, with Samantha still rambling in the passenger seat about her dress disaster. Lila struggled to manage her inebriation, which made it hard to drive. Suddenly, the steering wheel slipped out of her control as if it had come alive and refused to obey. Samantha screamed desperately as the car veered off the bridge and plunged into the water, taking both friends with it. Lila couldn't remember how she got out of the car and landed on the shore. Her body trembled slightly, and her teeth chattered in an uneven rhythm. She was quickly noticed, and help was offered while an ambulance and police were called. As she regained her senses, Lila felt a wave of fear at the thought of being tested for alcohol and discovered to have been driving drunk. Several hours later, the car was lifted. However, Samantha was nowhere to be found. Her parents were notified and rushed to the scene, her mother refusing to believe Lila when she said Samantha had been driving. After all, Samantha was indifferent to cars and preferred being a passenger while taking pictures rather than driving. Ethan also dropped everything to rush to the scene. The sight of the car from below made his heart race. "Samantha, where are you?" he shouted, desperately searching for her. Approaching the police, he asked if she was in the car. "What happened to her? Why is everyone so calm and slow?" "Divers are looking for her," replied one officer dryly. "Judging by the seriousness of the accident and how deep the car sank, she likely didn't survive." "I'm sorry, but there's no hurry," the policeman added callously. He showed no compassion for the grieving groom, and a hint of malice flickered in his eyes. Nearby, Samantha's father was holding his weeping wife. "They're not doing anything. Nothing at all," the woman wailed. "Calm down, dear," he tried to soothe her. "I've already called the right people. The entire police force and rescue team will be here soon, and those already here will be sent away." For the woman, the punishment these people might face was inconsequential. Finding her daughter was the only thing that truly mattered. The search went on for several days, but Samantha's body was never discovered. Her parents were inconsolable, and Ethan mourned deeply. The police officer concluded that the girl was dead, but only her father clung to the hope that she might still be alive, resisting the thought of placing her photo in a black frame at home. "No," he insisted, "Samantha couldn't have just died like that." "Then where is she?" cried the distraught mother. A juniper tree growing by the river might hold the answer. It saw a homeless man jump in and retrieve the lifeless body. He performed CPR, and finally, the girl began to cough. "She's alive," the man explained, as the juniper bush waved its branches joyfully in response. Though it might have just been the wind, Samantha took a long time to come to her senses. The man was patient. He draped his jacket over her to keep her warm, and when she was able to stand with his assistance, he guided her away. Samantha stumbled along as he led her forward, and along the way, they encountered several people. Some looked at the homeless man and his muddy companion with disgust, while others laughed and winked. "What happened to you? Why were you in the water?" he tried to ask Samantha, but she just shook her head, unable to respond. They walked for a long time, and Samantha was starting to run out of energy. The air was foul, and she vaguely realized they were in a city dump. They continued on, avoiding the stinking heaps of garbage. Eventually, they reached a shack made from whatever materials were available: old wooden doors, burlap boards, and bits of plastic. A fire was crackling nearby, where sardines were being grilled. 3 hunched figures were gathered close by. "Hey," the man said, "meet the mermaids. I caught her in the river today. I have to say, it's my luckiest catch." The figures straightened up and began examining their new guest. Samantha looked at them with a mix of distraction and fear, unable to discern whether what was happening was real or just a dream. One figure was an old man, while the other 2 were younger, yet all seemed like people who had been cast aside by life. "So, what's your name?" the old man croaked. "I don't know," she sighed, and the man answered for her. The other 2 moved closer, scrutinizing the girl. "She's pretty," one of them grinned unpleasantly. "She'll be our bride," suggested the other, and both chuckled lewdly. "Hush, you fools," the old man protested. "Can't you see the girl is in trouble? What was she doing in the river? Did she fall in, or did she want to harm herself? We don't know, but let's not jump to conclusions. We need to warm her up," he said, turning to Samantha's rescuer. "Yeah," the man replied, leading her toward the fire. "Get warm. Do you want something to eat?" Samantha shook her head, feeling nauseous. "Do you want something to drink?" he offered, but she shook her head again. Suddenly, the girl burst into loud sobs. "Where am I? Who are you? It stinks here. Let me out of here." Don't worry," the man tried to calm her. "You're safe with us. You'll rest here and then go home." However, Samantha suddenly shivered, began vomiting, and passed out. The men decided to take her into the shack and figure out what to do with her. It dawned on the man who saved Samantha that he shouldn't have brought her there. He should have left her somewhere public so that someone could find her and help. Well, tomorrow is another day, and we'll decide what to do next, he thought. The next morning, Samantha woke up feeling weak, battered, and suffering from a painfully throbbing headache. When she saw her savior holding a cup of something hot and steaming, she instinctively recoiled from him. "Chill. I'm Jason. Do you remember me? I pulled you out of the river. How do you feel?" He tried to speak gently, but Samantha muttered as she looked around the shack where she had spent the night. It was a greasy mattress, dirty dishes, a pile of plastic bottles, and some rags. She didn't know what else. "I feel sick," Samantha moaned, crawling outside. She touched her face and flinched. Her face was swollen, and her head was bandaged. But worst of all, she couldn't remember who she was, where she was from, or how she ended up there. All she knew was that something terrible had happened, and she needed to get out of there urgently. Jason tried to talk to Samantha, but she didn't want to engage with him and was too afraid to admit that she couldn't remember her name. He had to fend off two guys from the previous day who clearly wanted to get closer to the girl. Jason never left Samantha's side, keeping a watchful eye on her. He only stepped away when he noticed the old man, Harold, beckoning him with a finger while holding a newspaper. "That's the twist of fate," the old man said mysteriously, pointing to the front page, which announced the disappearance of a millionaire's daughter. There was Samantha's photo. Jason was stunned. "Well done, Harold. I'll take her to the police, and I'll get a reward," he said happily. Wait. Don't rush," the old man interrupted. "Believe it or not, I know this Samantha like the back of my hand. I didn't recognize her yesterday because she was covered in dirt and shadows." "How do you know her?" Jason asked, surprised. "Do you really think I've been living in a dumpster all my life?" Harold replied, "No. My son made me give my apartment to him and then kicked me out onto the street. I worked hard and earned well. I was a gardener for wealthy homes and had a good reputation. I took care of the most delicate and temperamental plants, trimming the bushes with great skill. Oh, if only you could have seen my artistry. But then my son threw me out, and life went downhill." "Oh, Harold," Jason said. "Let's get to the point. What do you know about the girl?" "Oh, right," Harold recalled. "I worked in the house where this Clark lived with her parents. I've never met a worse girl. She had a terrible character, always finding fault with everything and everyone. She bullied all the servants, making them redo things 100 times. I got a taste of it too. Oh, I never believed in karma before, but now I see it with my own eyes. All that evil has come back to her, and we need to teach her a lesson for everyone she's hurt." Listening to Harold's story, Jason was amazed. "Come on, what do you have in mind?" he asked. The old man scratched his head. "Nothing too special. Let her live here with us in the dump. Let her experience real life, and then we'll send our princess back to her palace. Apparently, she lost her memory when she fell into the river. So until she remembers, let her taste the reality of life," he said without hesitation. Jason had a deep-seated dislike for spoiled rich kids, especially since a wealthy heir had crashed into his car 2 years ago. In that accident, Jason lost his pregnant wife. Overwhelmed with grief, the young man gave away all his money and even sold all his property just to hire good lawyers to put the spoiled rich son behind bars. Unfortunately, the rich kid had more money and better connections, making it impossible for Jason to prove anything. Feeling guilty about his deceased wife and unborn child, he drowned his sorrows in alcohol and ended up living in the city dump. Meanwhile, the wealthy young man continued to drive around in his brand-new car, feeling like the king of the city. This motivated Jason to agree to teach the princess a lesson. "Do you really not remember anything?" he asked Samantha. "Nothing," she volunteered. "Don't you even remember what your husband said to you?" Samantha raised her head, and two of Jason's friends burst into laughter. "Husband?" she asked, surprised. "Yes, that's right. My name is Jason, and you're Samantha, my little Samantha." Hearing her name made her flinch. "Yes, you're right. I'm definitely Samantha," she finally acknowledged. Jason chuckled. "Yesterday, you were gathering beer bottles and cans at the beach, drinking whatever was left. It's no wonder you lost your balance, stumbled, and fell into the water. I barely managed to pull you out, he added. I was just collecting bottles, Samantha said in disbelief. And you call this a drunken hunt? There's always something tasty left at the bottom for you, he teased. Don't worry, my dear. You'll sober up soon, and we'll go gathering bottles again. The thought made Samantha feel sick. She grabbed her head and stomach, sitting down on the ground with her knees tucked under her chin. This is a dream, a real nightmare, she kept repeating. However, the pungent smell around her hinted that everything was in fact happening. Initially, Samantha resisted her situation, crying and whining, but she soon realized that if she didn't work, she wouldn't eat. After a couple of days of hunger, she became ready to collect tin cans or search for food in terrible places. Eventually, Samantha got used to this life and genuinely believed that Jason was her husband. It should be noted that Jason didn't live in luxury. He occupied a dilapidated house he bought with the money left over from selling his apartment. He was constantly fixing it up, but the place was in such bad shape that starting fresh would have been easier. Yet Samantha was happy with it. After living in the shack, she tried to bring some order to the house, but everything slipped through her fingers. She was inexperienced as a housewife, having never held a broom, rag, or paintbrush in her previous life. Since moving in with Samantha, Jason completely stopped drinking and even started thinking about returning to his normal job. A damp autumn rain poured down like a bucket, and the shack no longer provided adequate shelter. The younger drifters left for the village to find work and housing, but Harold had nowhere to go. He settled into the shack on an old mattress and slept, hugging a shaggy puppy named Alf, whom he had found in the garbage dump. Someone had discarded the weak and sick puppy, but Harold took him in. Now, this black puppy with a reddish tan kept Harold warm on cold evenings and frosty mornings, showing him how difficult life had become. Jason, aren't you ashamed? Samantha protested. Harold is all alone, and we're living here under a roof. We have to take him in with us right away. Jason agreed and brought the elderly man and his puppy into the house. Here, Harold, I've prepared a bedroom for you. I hope you'll be comfortable, he said. First, we need to restore your documents so you can receive your pension. You're entitled to it. We won't take anything from you, but you need warm clothes because the cold is coming soon. Harold was so surprised that his mouth dropped open. He never expected such changes. When they were alone, he said to Jason, Listen, Jason, you've gone too far. It's been long enough. You should return the girl to her family. You've trained her enough. Why? Jason asked, surprised. Did you come up with the idea of re-educating Samantha? I thought it would only take a couple of weeks. I won't give her up, Jason stated firmly. She's my wife, and I genuinely like her. Look, Jason, they'll throw you in jail for this, Harold warned him, and shortly after, Jason's plan almost fell apart. He went to the city on business and, at his own risk, took Samantha with him. The girl felt uncomfortable among the well-dressed crowd, most of whom looked down on her. One girl in particular stared at Samantha in disbelief before rushing to her car. Yes, it was Lila who recognized Samantha in the car. She grabbed her phone to tell Samantha's parents that she had seen their daughter, but then decided to let her figure it out herself. Flooring the gas, Lila sped home, feeling both frightened and satisfied with her decision. Samantha quickly forgot about the strange rich girl. Gradually, her life improved. Jason took any job he could find, while Harold successfully restored the documents he had lost when he first lived on the streets. Now he received a pension and shared part of it with the young couple. Together, they gradually repaired the house, transforming it from an ugly wreck into a cozy and inviting home, though still modest. A year passed. Samantha made some friends, simple but very nice girls. She planted a garden on the property, and with Harold's help, Alf grew into a large, adult dog, proudly running around the house and taking responsibility for guarding it and his owners. Most importantly, Samantha sincerely loved Jason, whom she saw as her husband. Over time, Jason began to believe in this whole story as well. He had reimagined himself, working in a warehouse and climbing the ranks from a simple dispatcher to a manager. He didn't plan to stop there, as this position was much lower than what he had held before. However, he made valuable connections and managed to get Samantha a job with a reputable cleaning company. She was already skilled, but at the company, she underwent additional training and proved herself to be the best, earning the trust of the finest houses. Cleaning was thorough, and there were times when Samantha found herself alone with her tasks, while other times her partner assisted her. The pay was decent, but they urged Samantha to restore her documents quickly. She considered going to the police, but Jason always tried to dissuade her with various excuses. For now, they allowed her to work without the necessary paperwork, and she took advantage of the situation. One day, Samantha was taken to a house where a celebration was set to take place. As she entered, a strange feeling washed over her, like déjà vu. While she wiped surfaces and applied polish, something fell off within her. Her partner grew frustrated with her slow pace, constantly pushing her, but Samantha found herself unable to speed up. Eventually, she descended to the hall to clean, and suddenly, she was struck by a shocking realization. Her photograph was framed in black on the fireplace shelf. Only this time, Samantha looked entirely different. Her gaze was transformed. Her eyes darkened, and then she saw bright flashes of light in the room. "Yes, it's me!" Unable to cope with the shock, Samantha screamed. Her partner rushed to her side, and Samantha's mother appeared, having heard the commotion. What's happening?" she asked irritably, only to freeze when she recognized her daughter. "Samantha, this is a dream." "I don't believe it." The woman waved her hands dismissively, but soon reality hit her, and she realized this wasn't a dream at all. She immediately called her husband, who rushed into the room. He stopped short, rooted to the spot, and then ran to embrace his daughter. "How long we've searched for you, my dear. We paid everyone we could to comb the entire city, but we couldn't find you." Like her parents, Samantha struggled to process the situation. Her memories were fragmented, yet she remembered who she was and recognized her parents. She also came to the painful realization that her husband, whom she loved dearly, had deceived her. No longer wanting to engage with him, she sensed that he understood everything as well. "The main thing is not to start drinking," Harold reassured him. "No," Jason replied firmly. "I won't fall into that abyss again. The main thing is to avoid jail." "It's too late for regrets, old man," Harold countered. "Now you need to worry about staying alive. These are serious people, and they will seek revenge for their daughter." The thought terrified Jason, but he knew he had brought this upon himself. Meanwhile, Ethan arrived at the hospital to see Samantha, who was undergoing a routine examination. After 2 long years, he embraced her tightly and showered her with kind words. However, he soon delivered the news that he was getting married in just a few days. Surprisingly, Samantha didn't feel upset. On the contrary, she was genuinely happy for Ethan. As for Lila, she was too afraid to show her face. Samantha remembered seeing her by the car that day and realized she would never forgive her for her cowardice. Initially reluctant to talk to Jason, Samantha eventually acknowledged that she missed him. She explained to her father that Jason was not a kidnapper, that he had saved her, and that she considered him her husband. The girl felt sincerely grateful to fate for the experiences that had transformed her into a completely different person. Now, she envisioned an entirely new life ahead. A month passed, and the festive table was set up in the garden. Alf was bustling about with a wide grin, trying to share delicious treats with everyone. Harold, who had taken on the role of gardener and been given a house on the property, was absorbed in studying a plant in the flower bed, eagerly anticipating the start of his new duties. He leaned over to whisper something sweet into Jason's ear, making him smile. Samantha had invited her new friends over, who admired her beautiful home. They were enjoying themselves at the table. Samantha knew how to have fun in a simple and heartfelt way, avoiding any vulgarity or bad taste. They were celebrating her true wedding to Jason. Although her parents wanted to organize a grand affair, Samantha insisted she didn't need all the fuss. Suddenly, she felt ill at the table and dashed to the bathroom. Concerned for her well-being, none of her friends followed her to discover that she was feeling nauseous. One friend suggested a pregnancy test, saying, "Yeah, take it. We're planning for a baby, so I have these tests lying around, even in bags." Samantha hesitated but decided to take the test. When she saw 2 lines 5 minutes later, her surprise and joy knew no bounds. She rushed out to the garden and handed the test to Jason. The girl was aware that his pregnant wife had died years ago, so she wasn't surprised to see tears in her husband's eyes. He embraced her tightly as the guests erupted into applause. The joyful herald shouted, "Cheers to the newlyweds!"